Welcome back to my channel for another Nikon Z9 episode. And this video is all about the new firmware 3.0 which just was brought to market by Nikon a couple of days back. And if I look into my camera body at this point in time here, let's go into the menu. I have still here firmware version 2.10 on the camera body. I'm going to update it now and then I will walk in detail through all the new functions and features you get with firmware 3.0. Let's kick this off. Feature number one concerns rotation by 90 degrees. And we have on the Nikon Z9 here a lock button. If this is unlocked, I have all my buttons here. If I rotate by 90 degrees and have my hand grip here and go into portrait shooting mode. And what you see here is, if I rotate it, then all the symbols, icons, and all the shooting parameters in the info display rotate with the display. And that's very convenient. And that worked on firmware version 2.1 if in the menu you went to auto rotate info display in the setup menu, and then here you had to toggle this on. And then it works like a charm. Have a look again. Here we go. If I toggle this off, it no longer works. Now if I rotate it, the symbols, the shooting parameters in the info display do not auto rotate by 90 degrees. Now on this camera here, I'm still on firmware 2.1 and we had this auto rotate feature on that firmware. But if I go into play mode, I have my information about the most basic shooting parameters, for instance, down here at the bottom. I can also toggle this by the display button here, for instance, but whatever I do, if I rotate the camera, the information is not rotating with the camera. And that is something despite the fact that in the menu here, I have in the playback menu activated rotate tall. If I toggle it off, it doesn't make any difference. Let's go back into playback mode here. It stays the same. Now, of course, I can argue this is an image in landscape mode here. Let's get the display button here away. And what happens now if I have an image which I shot in portrait mode? And let's go to some I just shot here. So here is the image. And this is now not auto-rotated. And if I rotate the camera, also nothing happens. Now there is a menu entry here in the playback menu. When I say rotate tall and toggle this on, then the image actually in playback rotates in the correct direction here. So that's a feature we already had on firmware 2.1, but again, the information I see here at the bottom, let me go back here, sorry. The information I see here at the bottom is not rotating in the same way as it rotates in shooting mode, where this is all auto-rotating. I have now upgraded the camera to firmware 3.0. Let's quickly have a look here. Let's go back here and check the firmware. So here we go. And then you see on the camera body, I'm now at 3.00, and that's actually what I wanted to achieve here. Now in the setup menu, nothing changed. I still have auto rotate info display, it's toggled on, and then the info display rotates if I rotate the camera by 90 degrees. So here is no change. In the playback menu, it changed. So the rotate tall is now replaced by auto rotate pictures, and it is toggled on. So let's have a look what it does. Let's go here into play. And let's have here the image we had before. And if I now rotate the camera, the image and everything I have in terms of information here rotates with the camera body. So that's very nice. And it's in particular nice if you are on a portrait oriented image like here. If I now rotate the camera, I get the full picture leveraging the full portrait orientation display, and all my information rotates with the camera body. That's actually a nice feature, and it is feature number one. Feature number two can be found in the photo shooting menu under image size settings. And if I go into that menu entry here, we have, as we had before, the image size. So I can choose here large, medium, and small. And that also changes the file size, of course, the megapixel and what have you. But I have now a new entry here, which is called enable DX image sizes. And if I toggle this on, it uses only a cropped in part of the sensor, namely only 24 × 16 mm, which corresponds to the Nikon DX or APS-C format. And if this is toggled on, then I can independently here select my image size between large, medium, and small. And you see here the megapixel and the pixel resolution. And that is independent of what I have chosen before here under L. So let's say here I'm under L, and I can, if DX image sizes is toggled on, easily go here for medium, and you see that this is an independent setting. I have now large here and medium here, which is then feature number 2. So why would people want to do that? Enable DX image sizes if they can easily shoot here on the full frame sensor and crop in later in post. Well, sometimes people like this because they want to see in the live view what they are shooting. Let's say you have a 100mm lens mounted, and if you shoot that on a full frame sensor, it's a 100mm field of view. If you change here, enable DX image sizes and toggle it on, then the focal length effectively is becoming a 150mm lens, but at the expense that you only use a crop part of the sensor and that your resolution, of course, is smaller than what you would get on an FX sensor. I never do this because I always do this in post and shoot with the full sensor area, so the FX format, but for some people this might be a useful feature. Feature number 3 is a new high-speed frame capture option, namely to shoot with 60 frames per second. And in order to see this, let me rotate the mode dial here for release, and let's go to the very last setting here. And then if I press and hold the release mode button, I can change my settings here. And what is new now here is the 60 frames per second option, which you see now right in the middle of the display. Now this new option doesn't come for free, and in order to see what you have to pay or what the expense is, let's go back to single frame, and then you see, let me quickly zoom in here, that I have here now a shooting option of RAW and JPEG, f-star, and I shoot with the full frame sensor. If I now press and hold that release mode button again and go to 60 frames per second, then my settings change. First of all, I'm now in image size on large only. I can only shoot JPEGs, you no longer see the RAW in the display here, and I can only shoot in the DX format, which is the 24x16mm cropped into the sensor. And that is the expense you have to pay. And the second constraint you have, of course, if you want to do 60 frames in a second, you have to shoot at least as fast as 1/60 seconds. Feature number 4 is about high frequency flicker reduction. And that was something which came to the Nikon Z9 with firmware 2.1. But only for still images and not for video. And no, it's available in the same way in the shooting mode for stills as well as for video. And the way this works is the following. We have a menu entry here in the photo shooting menu, and here you can activate this. And first of all, let's see here. I switched here to fully manual mode, and now I have here my shutter speed dial, and if I turn it, one click changes from 1/60 to 1/80, 1/100 seconds, 1/125, and so on. If I activate it, which I'm going to do right now, we get a much finer fine-tuning of the shutter speed if I use the shutter speed control wheel here. And you see that immediately, so 64.5, 64.9, and so on. And that can be used to fine-tune your shutter speed in a way that you can reduce or at least try to minimize any flickering coming from LED lights or light bulbs when you have that situation in an indoor shooting, for instance. And the range you can use this for is between 1/8000 seconds up to 1/30 seconds, and the increments here now are very small compared to if I deactivate it in the menu again, what we saw before when it just jumps from 1/60 to 1/80 and so on. Feature number 5 is very useful if you go for product photography and want to do focus stacking and focus bracketing. And in Nikon terminology, focus bracketing is called focus shift shooting. And we have a new entry here now in the menu, which is called focus position auto reset. And you have this off, or you can toggle it on. And what it means is when on is selected, after you have shot the sequence, which is automatically done by the camera, and also the focus is shifted automatically by the camera, then the focus returns to the starting position. So if you want to start all over again, you don't have to refocus. It just finds where you started with your first sharp image and where the focus was sitting in the first frame of the sequence. When you have selected here off, then the focus remains fixed at the position where you had the final frame in the focus bracketing sequence. Feature number 6 is about high resolution zoom when you are in 4K or 1080p. And it uses, of course, the high resolution of the sensor. You can shoot with the Nikon Z9, of course, in 8K. But if you go to the lower resolutions, 4K and 1080p, you can now activate a lossless zoom up to 2 times magnification. And that is maybe the most ingenious feature for videographers with the new firmware 3.0 on the Nikon Z9. So let's see now how you can customize this feature, how you use it, and how you activate it. And I'm shooting here now in my example with a video resolution of 4K 30p, and on the codec I have here H265 8-bit, and that is one of the compatible resolutions and codecs you can use. And there is a bunch of different combinations of frames per second and resolution in the 4K area and the 1080p area which work with this new high-res feature. First of all, if I want to operate the high-res zoom, I can go for different options and customize different buttons here. I have actually chosen here, let me quickly show that, the lens control ring. So if I go here, let's go here to video and custom controls, and if I go down to the very bottom, I have here my lens control ring, and this is the ring I will use by rotating it forth and back to zoom in and out with high-res zoom. So if I look what's underlying that lens control ring now, we have here high-res zoom activated. Before I had it on power aperture, now I have it on high-res zoom so that I can demonstrate how this is working. So if I now go into live shooting here, you see the face of my model is detected, but if I turn the lens control ring, nothing happens. And the reason is that I first need to tell the camera that I want to use high-res zoom in video, and for that I go into the video menu, and then I go to the very bottom, let's go it the other way around here, and then I can toggle it on. And now it should work, so let's have a look. And let me zoom in a little bit so you see what's happening if I turn the lens control ring. And now it's zooming in, and look how smooth this is. Very, very nice. This is absolutely soft, and I think it's a fantastic new feature you can use here. You also have a scale here which shows you that this goes up to 2 times, and so you get the information where you are. You also have an icon showing you that you have high-res zoom activated, which is also very nice. And for me actually to customize my workflow, I've put this in the eye menu here, and if I push it here, then I can toggle this off and I can toggle it on. And I also have an option here whether it zooms in with low speed, standard speed or high speed. So let's try this out quickly. Let's go to low speed here. Let's go back into live view here, and now if I have low speed, it is very, very soft. Look how I can very, very softly zoom in here to the face or the body of my model and then zoom out in the same way. So this works really, really nice. In comparison, let's try this out for high speed. So let's go here to high speed. Sorry, I need to go here down. And let's do this again. And then you see how much faster this is. So I can here really fast zooming in and out. And that is, of course, very nice. So that's the way to customize it. And if you have not seen my 35 tips and tricks of the Nikon Z9, the way to get this on the I button here is very simple. You go into the menu, then you go into the controls for video, and then you have customize I menu. And you see I can choose here any place in that table I want to have. And if I push now the control button here, I have chosen here now high-res zoom, and then it's always at your disposal when you need it. And you can easily also toggle this off if you don't like that type of high-res zoom. And by the way, if I would choose a video codec or resolution which is not compatible with high-res zoom, let's quickly illustrate this here. Let's go into video and let's go into a format which is not supported. So let's go to 8K here. And then of course the full resolution of the sensor is used for the full resolution of the video. Let's go into that. And then if I go into the I menu and want to activate here high resolution zoom, then it's grayed out. I cannot choose it here. You see it's not working, and the camera knows automatically which resolution and which frames per second. And you know, in the 4K area and the 1080p area do work with high resolution zoom. So if I want to go back here and say in the resolution I go back to 4K and 30p, then it will work again. And it's no longer grayed out, and I can play with it in the way I just illustrated. Very nice, very well done, Nikon. Feature number 7 is a tiny little change, and I would subsum it under quote unquote housekeeping, but it is nice to have it now. And let me quickly show you my settings here and what I'm talking about. I'm here in autofocus continuous, and I have 3D tracking. And if I'm in this setting, then the square in the middle of the frame is always red, and only if I half press the shutter button, it turns into green and finds the face of my model here. And this red color always irritated me because it should be white. Because red means bad. Red means something is not in focus. Red means you've made a mistake. And now you can change it in the menu. Let's quickly go there. We go into custom settings menu under section A, which is focus. And then we find here under A11 focus point display. And here's a new menu entry now, which allows me to change that color of the square in the middle of the frame, and that's called 3D tracking focus point color. Currently on R, which stands for red, And now if I change it to white, then all of a sudden my irritation is gone, and that focus field in the middle of the frame is now white in terms of color and no longer in red. I know it's not a lot, but for me it makes a difference. I like this feature. Feature number 8 concerns new options under monitor brightness. And let's quickly go into the menu. We have here in the setup menu monitor brightness. I have this currently on +3 because I want to make sure that you guys see what's going on in the live view. But now it doesn't end any longer at 5. We also have a high 1 and a high 2, and that makes the display super bright, and is of course useful if you shoot in bright sunlight or daylight. And the same goes in the other direction. -5 is no longer end of story. We also have a low 1 and a low 2, and that's of course very useful if you shoot at nighttime and don't want to get too much bright light from the live view into your eyes, so you don't see the surrounding any longer. And I think that's a nice little update, and it shows how much love and care Nikon is investing in their flagship camera. Feature number 9 is such a tiny little upgrade that I don't do a demonstration here, but I want to quickly mention for the sake of completeness. And that feature will now help you if you shoot in white balance with a preset manual to show the color temperature value in the basic shooting data on the info screen. When in playback mode, you toggle through the different screens via the display button. And I think it's a nice feature to have, because you can use this color temperature value going forward, but doesn't need a demonstration here in this video. For feature number 10, I switched the camera into high burst mode. And if you shoot in burst mode, you can now group these images, and you don't have to scroll through, let's say you have in burst mode shot 30 frames, to all of these frames. They are treated as groups, and you can customize in the menu how they should be treated. Let me quickly show how this works. So we go into the menu, and then in the playback menu, we go to playback display options, and we have a new entry now, which I already activated, mark first shot in series. And that creates then a group symbol in the live view and the information display. And you can use this then later on if you go into menu and then into here, let's go here into controls, and then custom controls playback, which is F3. Then we can actually have the command dial in a way set up that we have frame advance activated, and we skip to first shot in series. And that skips then all the 30 frames I have shot maybe in between, and always goes to the first frame of the series, and I don't have to scroll through all of them. Let's do a quick demonstration how this works. So let's go back into live view, and let's take a burst shot here. Listen to the sound. Wonderful. Now you see how it's storing them, so it counts upwards to 826, and we have a bunch of frames here. And now if I use the control dial here to jump, you see I've shot 19 frames, and it immediately jumps to frame number 1. Right? This is already the next picture, which is my first picture on that card here. And here it shows me the group, and we have 19 frames, and it jumps to the first one because that's what I activated in this new menu entry. Nice option. But that's not end of story. There are more options I can set up in the menu. And in order to understand this, let's go into playback here again. And now we have here these 19 frames subgrouped. And if I zoom out here, I still get the thumbnails of my single frames here in consecutive orders. So we have here the 45, 46, 47, and so on. You just see it. And that is maybe not what I want. If I want them now also be grouped in the thumbnail view, I can go back into the menu, and there is a new menu entry here now in Firmware 3.0, which is called Series Playback. And if I go into that, I can toggle on list series as single thumbnails. And if I do that and go back here, let's go back into playback and let's zoom out. Then you see now they are all grouped here. It also shows me it's 19 frames in the thumbnail view. And if I zoom further out, it gives me the other images from a shooting I did in Bern. And I no longer have to see here now 9 thumbnails, in total then 19 thumbnails with the same boring picture. It's just grouped into one single thumbnail. Very nice. And yes, that's still not end of story. There is more we can do here. And if I want to have an auto series playback, I can go back into that menu here and again into series playback, and then I can toggle on auto series playback. And if I now go back into the preview, then it will very quickly, and we won't see it here because I did shot exactly the same scene, but have a look at the upper right hand side corner where it counts through the 19 frames in a very quick auto series playback. So let's go for that. Let's do it. have a look in the upper right hand side corner, and then you see how it shows these frames. And I think that's all in a lot of optionality, which makes your workflow with burst shots much easier. Feature number 11 also plays in the playback display options. And let's quickly go there. What we had before is that we can make visible the focus point in an image. So if I'm going here into playback and I have an image here and I activate this in the menu, then it shows me where I was focusing. So here you see that red square right in the center of the frame. And that was there before in the previous firmware. Let's go back and deactivate this because I don't want that. But here is a new option now. Here is what screens I'm toggling through when I consecutively press the display button. And I have exposure info, shooting data, you saw that before. I have a frame only, no information on it. And new now here is file info. And file info shows several things if you activate them and have them featured in your shooting. And let's quickly activate it here. So we have file info. If I now toggle through my different screens by pushing the display button, I have here the full shooting information. And then we have here the empty frame. And here now is the file info frame. So it's still kind of nothing that distracts you, but it shows a few menu items or a few elements or informations you might have activated. Let's make an example. I have just customized here my rating. So if I assign now a rating to that image, let's say 3 stars, then it displays it here. Let me zoom in quickly so you can better see this. And this is then on the screen. And there are other things you can make visible here. For instance, if you used voice memo or protect status or retouch or what have you, different informations, you can look this up in the manual. And it's just an additional option which gives you a dedicated info screen, which is not so distracting as some of the other info screens here. But you still get some information. For instance, that's frame number 327 out of 826 frames currently on the memory card I have in the camera, and it gives you an additional option for your preview. Feature number 12 lines up with something I said in my 35 tips on the Nikon Z9, and it's about center weighted metering. And I have here activated in the eye menu currently center weighted metering, and then you typically get a circle around the focus field here, and you see that circle indicated here, and the circle size also changes if we go here into, let's see, metering exposure, and then we go to center weighted area. Currently it's small, then we have a small circle here. If we go to the larger circle, let's quickly go there, which is then standard, the circle becomes larger, you see that, and if you went for average, then the circle was gone. And that's what I showed in my video on 35 tips for the Nikon Z9. Now, if you don't want to have that circle, and that was automatically coming, so whenever you went here on center weighted area to standard or small, you got that circle and there was nothing you could do about it. And also some people were confused, and that's why I added this under my 35 tips and tricks for the Nikon Z9. Now, Nikon added a feature now, which is here under shooting display. And this is on custom monitor shooting, which concerns the LCD. And it is on custom viewfinder shooting, which actually concerns then only the EVF. And let's do this for the monitor because that's what we have in front of us on display. If I now go into here and I have my different display settings, which I can toggle through by the display button, and I customize this, I can now switch this circle off, and that's here. You see it indicated here on the left hand side on the screen, and if I switch it off, the circle is gone, despite the fact that I'm still here in metering and exposure on standard or on small. And clearly small and standard concerns the area which is used for the metering, and if you don't want to have that circle, you can now switch it off, but you can also bring it back by going again here into the customization and toggling it on, and then the circle will be back if you meter in the center. And that is very nice. It's just an additional optionality you have for your settings, and you can customize this for your own taste and preferences. Feature number 13 is about new options to customize settings on certain buttons. And what I'm talking about is here under section F in the custom settings menu. You have controls, and then we have F2, which are custom controls for shooting. And I can customize here my buttons. I've shown that in previous videos, and we have the same on the video side under the G menu here, where we have custom controls under G2. What Nikon did now for firmware 3.0 is for 5 buttons which are customizable. They provide you more roles which can now be assigned to these buttons. And the buttons which are concerned are the vertical ISO sensitivity button, the display button, which is here, the video record button, which is here at the top, the exposure compensation button, which is also at the top, and the ISO sensitivity button. And the roles you can assign, I only play this through in a few examples now on still images. So let's go into controls and let's go to custom controls and let's choose, well, because we see it here, the display button. So here I have a bunch of things I can assign in terms of roles. And for each of these 5 buttons, which I mentioned before, you have now 6 new roles for still images, which you can assign in the shooting customization mode. And one of them, for example, is switch between the FX and DX format or photo flicker reduction and so on. So all in, it just means you have more optionality in your customization and getting it right for your workflow. The same, by the way, and that's feature number 14, applies also to custom controls playback. And here also the display button has got some new roles which can be assigned to that button, and all in it's 4 different roles, for instance filter playback, start series playback, cycle info display, and resume shooting. And that is of course again providing more flexibility for the way you want to shoot and you want to later look into these images when you are in playback mode. Feature number 15 brings us back to the setup menu and concerns formatting memory cards. And if I go into that menu entry here in the setup menu, I don't want to do it here now. I hope I don't make a mistake here because I have a lot of images on these cards, which are my backup for what's on my MacBook. But let's go into slot number 1. And then you have now, in addition, you don't have format yes or no. You have no, you have yes quick format. So that's a quick way of erasing content on the card. And then you have the full format, which is a deep erase and fully wipes out the card in a way we have not seen it before on the Nikon Z9. And that is a new feature, of course. And if now you ask yourself what the heck really is the impact if I decide for full format instead of quick format, you need to know a little bit about storage and the way things are stored on an SD card, on a compact flash express card, or also on a hard disk or an SSD. And if you go for quick format, just the information about the file system gets lost and will be deleted. So you cannot immediately access the data on the card, but the data is still on the card. And if you pass that card on to someone else with easy recovery programs and tools, they can recover all the images you shot. If you go for full format, it really wipes the card and all the data is completely deleted. And that's of course what you should do if you give a memory card in third-party hands. Maybe one remark in addition on that particular feature here. If you go not for the quick format, that really goes in the meaning of the word quick very quickly, but you go for full format, then you need to be a bit patient because a full wipe of a memory card, in particular if you have higher storage capacity, takes a while and will need some time. Alright, so this video is getting close to 30 minutes now, which is kind of my magic endpoint. So I will link down in the info box the manual which Nikon provided for all the new features we have in that new firmware 3.0. So you can download it and have a look yourself. But for the sake of completeness, let's look into 8 more features which they provide, and then let's conclude the video. First of all, we have new timecode option in video recording. Second, we have a new monitor mode, prioritize viewfinder, and we have new view mode options for flash photography. We also have now an option to display the color temperature value if you shoot under white balance with preset manual. We also have a new release timing indicator option, which is something I talked about in my 35 tips on the Nikon Z9. We have a new FTP connection indicator. We have support for FTPS. And we have finally one option which helps you if you shoot your camera with Atomos video devices. At the end of the manual on firmware 3.0, Nikon has a full inventory on all the menu entries and everything that's changed with the upgrade from 2.1 to 3.0, and that's very useful. And all in, concluding the video now, I think this is a very nice upgrade for an already terrific camera. And for me, clearly, the high resolution zoom in video, for instance, but also some other features I mentioned and explored in the course of the video, they really make a difference. And I think Nikon did a great job providing this new firmware to us, and is, by the way, a good tradition they have from Nikon as a manufacturer to always upgrade cameras when the time is right and when they have implemented new features in software. If you liked that video, don't forget to drop me a thumbs up. Stay tuned on my channel. There's always more to come. Thanks for watching. Stay safe and healthy. And of course, peace out.